What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. Sort of a different setup here. I'm traveling for the holidays and everything, so I'm just on a laptop. So don't have the usual setup, but still I want to get you guys some content here. So in this one, I'll be going over waiver wire targets for week 13. I'll go position by position, do what I can to give you guys the best options in terms of what we can do to add and really improve our rosters here. It's a really important 2 weeks in fantasy. We've obviously got two more games for each of us before our fantasy playoffs, and then really important to make sure that we're really sort of prioritizing winning these next two games, getting into the playoffs, and doing really well. So lots of things happened this last weekend, lots of guys to talk about, and hopefully you guys find this useful. Any questions or anything, just let me know in the comments below as well. I'll be happy to give you guys my opinions there. So yeah, let's get into the quarterbacks here. Starting things off with the quarterback position, Russell Wilson stands out to me this week. He's got a great matchup with Cincinnati. It makes him a pretty solid streaming option. Justin Fields playing does limit the upside. It seems like they're going to get him involved in short yardage, potentially be a little bit annoying in terms of like goal line usage and all that. So sort of like a Derek Carr, Taysom Hill situation. It's like you don't love it, but it doesn't take him off the table. I think this should be a high scoring game in Cincinnati. I think it's definitely something that we can play for sure. Derek Carr gets the Rams in week 13. He's been playing really well lately, and we've seen the Rams are just not very good on defense. That game could certainly be a shootout. So I think Derek Carr at least belongs in the consideration here. Brock Purdy as well might have been dropped this last week because he got hurt. He's a fringe starter every single week. They've got a good matchup next week against Buffalo. Game that could easily be a shootout. I think you can play Brock Purdy. And then Tua Tagovailoa just shouldn't be on waivers. He's been playing phenomenal lately, and they get the Packers on Thursday. It's a good matchup, good enough. Should be a high-scoring game. I think you can play Tua for sure next week. Moving on to the running back position, we got a lot of guys to talk about here. We'll start off with Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins got injured on Monday here. We don't know how serious it is. It's a knee injury. He's going to miss either anywhere between 0 weeks to significant time here. So don't have a lot of information there, but at least for right now, Gus Edwards would be in line for a really big role next week against Atlanta. It's not a scary matchup at all. It could easily be a high scoring game. We saw Gus Edwards score just this last week. I think Edwards is a guy you could play as like low end running back too. Jeremy McNichols, similar thing here. We've got injuries ahead of him. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler both got hurt. I bet they'll both miss week 13. And McNichols has actually looked pretty good in the opportunities he's been given. So I think you could pick him up and play him as like a low end RB2. Pretty good pass catcher as well. I think they'll use him out of the backfield. Amir Abdullah as well played really well this last week. He honestly, at least to my eyes, looked like he was the best Raiders running back they've had all season. If he gets another shot here in a game they should be trailing against the Chiefs, he'll probably catch a few passes. I think he's a guy that they're going to need to involve going forward. Even if Madison comes back or something, I think you could still use him as a deep league PPR option. But if everybody's gone again, Abdullah's the clear lead back there. You can play him if you need to. And then Tajay Spears, he's a talented player. He could return this next week. I don't know that I'd be starting him. He'd take a desperation low end RB2 if you needed to, but like, he's a talented player. I don't want to, he's not the kind of guy that should be on waivers. Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy's clearly a better player, but he keeps fumbling. We could see a situation here where Devin Singletary gets touches back. And if that happens, Singletary would be useful for sure. Same reason here. Blake Corum, Kyron Williams keeps fumbling. I don't really think Kyron's going to lose the job, but it feels like he's 1-2 fumbles away from that potentially happening. And Blake Corum, if he just suddenly got the workhorse role, I don't think they can do that. But if it did, he'd obviously be a really solid asset. So he's got to be rostered for sure. I value him more than some of the other handcuffs because at least now there's a narrative that could result in him potentially, changing. The workload could shift here potentially just without an injury. Antonio Gibson, I don't want to mention him really, but he did outsnap Ramondre. Ramondre didn't do a lot this last week. You could pick up and play Gibson in like a super desperate situation if you needed to. And then other handcuff options like Braylon Allen, Tyler Algier, Zach Charbonnet, Ray Davis, those kinds of guys. Those are the kinds of guys that need to be on rosters right now just in case there's an injury ahead of him because he'll be way ahead of everybody on waivers, and they can be like league-changing shakeups if those things happen. Moving on to the wide receiver position here, MVS, I've got to mention him, has been really good for 2 weeks in a row prior to the bye. If he's still on waivers, he's a guy that you potentially just pick up and flex if you needed to against the Rams this week. Keon Coleman has just been playing way too well. If he's on waivers right now, he needs to be rostered, and you can consider starting him this week against San Francisco. Demario Douglas caught 5 passes for 62 yards this last week. He's just a guy that you can flex whenever you need to. Not sexy, but he's a good player. He's involved in the offense. You can play him if you need to. Devon Vele just seems to be the clear wide receiver 2 there in Denver. Now, again, not a super high upside play, but somebody that you could play if you needed to. David Moore, I could also mention Adam Thielen and Xavier Legette. So this whole Panthers receiving room is still sort of open in the air, but like David Moore seemed like he was the clear wide receiver 1 to me. He's got history with Dave Canales dating back to time in Seattle, going forward to Tampa Bay. Now he's followed him to Carolina here. He's always been an okay player. He's not special by any means, but like if he's a guy that Bryce Young's feeling comfortable with. He played really well this last week. He's a guy that you can play if you need to. And, a plus matchup next week against Tampa Bay. Dontavian Wicks. I don't know if I want to get trapped with this one again, but like Romeo Doubs did leave the game this last week with a concussion. If he doesn't play, Wicks will be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets, which they run a ton of. So against Miami, it could be a high scoring game. Maybe Wicks comes out and actually finally does something. And then Noah Brown. It's hard to completely ignore 10 targets. He's still the clear wide receiver 2, third pass catcher in this offense in my eyes behind Zach Ertz. So I don't love it, but in like a desperate spot, if you need to flex him, you could certainly consider doing that in full PPR. At tight end, we got some good names here. Jonnu Smith. I doubt he's available, but if he is, at this point, he's the wide receiver 1 since week 9. He's playing, or tight end 1 since week 9. Just playing phenomenal. Seems to be a focal point of this Miami offense. And the matchup against Green Bay, again, could be a high-scoring game. So I think you can play him every single week. Taysom Hill also just shouldn't be available. He might be the tight end 1 the rest of the way. You're picking him up and playing him if he is available. Zach Ertz, he won't go away. He just keeps getting involved, catching passes. So you can play him if you need to. Just a reliable low-end tight end 1. Same thing for Hunter Henry. Makes his weekly appearance in this list as a guy that, he'll be involved, not going to be like a week winning performer, but he's an important part to the offense. Not every tight end can say that. So you can definitely pick up and play Henry if you need to. And then Noah Gray. It feels unsustainable, but like 2 touchdowns this last week, after 2 touchdowns the week before, kind of just vulturing Travis Kelce right now. So it's tough to really rely on that. But like you can pick up Noah Gray and play him and just pray for a touchdown if you really want to. And defenses, some good options here. On Thanksgiving, we got the Lions hosting the Bears. I don't love that necessarily, but like the Bears are certainly a team that we've seen implode at times. The Lions defense is just playing phenomenal, so you can definitely pick them up and play them. The Cowboys defense looked phenomenal this last week against the Commanders until the very end of the game. Play the Giants this next week. Everybody looks good against the Giants, so I think you can pick up and play the Cowboys defense for sure. The Chiefs defense, probably not available, but if they are, they play the Raiders this next week. That does not scare me at all. The Texans play the Jaguars, especially if Trevor Lawrence is inactive. Texans defense has been phenomenal lately, and the Jaguars have been really bad on offense, even with Trevor Lawrence, but without him, they'll be even worse. So you can play them either way, but they obviously get a bump if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play. The Patriots play the Colts. We know Anthony Richardson certainly opens up a lot of opportunity there for there to be some turnovers. So you can play him, or you can play the Patriots. Colts defense gets to play the Patriots. Same thing, rookie, turnover prone. You could certainly play them if you need to. The Bucks play the Panthers. Again, a plus matchup, although Bryce Young did look better, so I'm a little bit hesitant about that one, but I still think you can play them for sure. And the Broncos, really good defense for the Browns. You could certainly get some turnovers out of Jameis, so you can play the Broncos defense next week for sure. And that'll do it for waiver wire this week. Again, if you guys have any specific add or drop questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to help you guys out there. Any additional questions or anything you want to add, just add it there. If you made it this far in the video, hope you guys liked it. Again, sorry for not having the usual setup. I know it's obviously a little bit suboptimal, but do what we can to get you guys everything before. And these are really important games. I don't just want to leave you guys out there to dry. So hopefully you guys find this useful. If you want more future content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and appreciate you guys. I'll catch you with the next one.